Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is William Prince. Prince's new album is called Further from the Country, produced by Dave Cobb. A lot of this album details his upbringing and experience as a member of the Peguis First Nation in Manitoba. Prince has won multiple Juno Awards and other awards, and we talked a lot in this in this episode about as he's kind of moved from writing early on, writing as a means of escape, as therapy, and just for survival almost, as you're writing to make enough money to keep the lights on, to pay the rent, literally, not metaphorically, and how that has transformed as he's really made quite a substantial name for himself as a singer-songwriter in Canada, going from writing as an escape to now writing for joy. And that's a great feeling. We talked about the difference that makes, obviously, to the writing process. He says also that he allows himself to miss the guitar. He doesn't force it. He allows himself to miss the guitar. And when the guitar comes calling, after he becomes bored for a while, that's when he starts to write. He gets his best work done in the morning with a fresh and uninterrupted mind. And of course, as I often talk about with songwriters, the role of movement. He said so many of his voice memos happen with my windows cracked an inch on those long drives from Calgary to Vancouver or Winnipeg to Calgary. I love that. And I've actually been on those drives before, and it's a long drive. So I'd love this conversation. Again, William Prince's latest album is called Further from the Country. Enjoy. Let's do it. So I always start with a very simple question, and that is, as a songwriter, is it important for you to create in some fashion every day rather than waiting until the mood strikes, or do you feel like you've got to kind of sit back and let it come to you?
I'm very much in the sit back and let it find me phase right now. I was just talking about this the other day, how that's kind of like the promo when you're a younger songwriter. It's like I write a song a day. I never stop. I don't even sleep, I can't even function. It's guitar before food. It's guitar before anything. And I was like, I understand that. I had like a feverish writing nature in the beginning where I couldn't stop. And I'm a few albums in now. I'm 5 albums in, and now it's more about like quality of content and stuff. So I allow myself to miss the guitar. That's the best way I've been describing it lately is, it also stems too from back then. I didn't have much else going on. So sorry. I didn't have much else going on back then. So the guitar did consume me. Writing consumed me every day. It was always something. But now I find value in resting and changing my mind for a while. And then when I go back to the guitar, it feels more fresh. It feels, yeah, like I've missed it. And from that, something usually happens. I've been, uh, I've been really focusing on collecting words right now. So that part can kind of distance me from, I guess, the act of writing. It's just more collecting, taking photos and developing the film later, as I call it. But no, I don't write every day anymore, but I don't get too far from it. I'll get a couple weeks away from it and then I'll be back to something.
When does that urge strike? Because I do hear that a lot, but I'm curious about when does the urge? It sounds like it's an urge rather than, oh, I should be doing this. Do you feel the urge? I guess like something coming on.
Yeah, definitely. It pulls you, you know. It's the same thing. I now know what it is. I used to wonder what it was before, and yeah, the call for it, it'll come knocking. I think some sense of me knows, like, oh, you've gone golfing 3 times this week. You know, you should probably do some work soon. And then the longer I'm like, oh wow, we spent the whole time last few weeks, last month, really just wedding. You know, and I was sitting at my in-laws the day after the wedding, and it's like, wow, it's been about 3 weeks since I've seriously played any guitar or written any words down. And yeah, like a task that you've been meaning to do, it finds me again, and then I get the urge to do it, and I'm not really satisfied until I get back to it. So that's like that's a good measure for still doing the right thing. I'm thankful I still get songs, you know, they're found. I've also been just like down a rabbit hole of Noel Gallagher because we just saw Oasis the other day, and just the way he describes, you know, they say I forget who he was mentioning, but maybe Lennon or something, where he says all songs are already written. You just gotta like go grab them in a way. But and he also describes songwriting kind of like catching a fish. You know, there's a stillness that has to happen for me. I've always said before I can find something. So I guess I gotta like allow myself to become bored these days. And that's like the hugest part of it. So I won't get too far ahead of myself, but yeah, I definitely feel the call for it after a little while when yeah, it's been a month of wedding planning and we did the wedding and going golfing and hanging out with family and friends and just really celebrating life right now. And then in the back of my head, it's like, oh, I haven't unlatched a guitar in a while. It's been put away, you know, because I've been traveling or yeah. And then like wanting to message an old friend or call a friend or something. I just have to go see that person. I have to go sit for a while.
So you mentioned boredom. I was going to ask you this later, but let's get into it now because I've read people, and I think I agree with this. You know, boredom. I'm fascinated by when the eureka moments strike.
Mm.
My eureka moments never happen when I'm sitting down and thinking, let me have a eureka moment. And
Sure.
Agatha Christie, the writer, I always quote her this one quote in every interview. She said, the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. And so the number of writers who get ideas and songwriters while they are gardening, mowing the lawn, repetitious movement is a way when your brains are engaged in unconscious activity, that's when those ideas bubble up. So I guess it's a multi-part question. Does it happen to you? Have you ever thought about when those moments strike? And that's the same reason why they say we got a great ideas in the shower, because again, it's that boredom. So anyway, your take on all that stuff.
Yeah, I for sure think that way because we have more stimuli than ever right now. So a lot of my good work comes in the morning before I've seen or heard or anybody else's ideas. I try to use that time to finish what I was working on or start something or yeah, it's incredible what allowing a fresh, rested, uninterrupted mind, let that work. That's like my truest source of finding anything right now. When I know I have to do something, like I just wrote a song for a movie and I had a prompt, which is so fun. Like that's great. That really helps. But yeah, it was like purposely not hearing anybody else's melodies or seeing any other ideas. And then slowly the song kind of unpackages itself. And I try to stick with things and like when I do get on a roll to start I almost get bored with the guitar too. It's like, all right, you've been in this circle for an hour now. It's like, impress yourself, get out of this path, and like, what else can you add to this, considering the number of songs you've already written and all the songs that are, and um it really becomes a fun challenge for me to find something new in the basic structure of like just three majors and a minor. That's a lot of my songs are still rooted in that classic structure, and all the great country songs of all time have come that way. And it's just like, yeah, it comes to those who wait and work on it. And sometimes that means even getting bored within the creation process to the point of, all right, I want to play something else with my hands or sing a different melody line. And yeah, it starts with allowing myself to be away from the stimuli, I guess. And then you just create something like I've always done.
But do you ever thought about have those ideas happen to you when you're deliberately you don't have the guitar, like when you're
Oh,
doing something?
all the time. Yeah. It's interesting. It's like putting yourself in a new lane of thought. It will help you discover a new way of looking at something. That's where it all comes from. Like oftentimes in transit, I get lots of like, it's almost like, oh, there is no instrument nearby. And of course, now I get a new melody that I want to work on, and it'll be a few hours. So there's so much rambling in my phone, just ideas for later. And that does come from like weirdly long travel days, or we were in a hotel the other week that had a swimming pool, and I was swimming for maybe the first time this year, last 2 years, and water slides with my son and just experiencing his joy. And yeah, it just started to spark all these thoughts of like what it is to be unencumbered and just go down the water slide 200 times. Like, we don't do that anymore. And the whimsy and wonder, the innocence he has for life, it kind of like refreshes my memory for it, refreshes my takes on it. And so that was a moment where I could have just jumped out of the pool and ran to the room and unpacked the guitar and start singing about youth again or something. Yeah, it finds you in the places, in unexpected places, I guess. Um,
Well, you mentioned movement, and David Byrne once said a car is a great time to is the great place to write lyrics. I think he said your brain is occupied. I forgot the quote. Actually, I have the quote up here, and I don't want to misquote him. So David Byrne said a car is a good place to write lyrics. Driving occupies one part of the brain, freeing up the other. But I never get moments when the pen's in front of me. It's always when I'm driving. I love to run, so during those times, and I can further break it down. Like, is it self locomotion? You're walking, you're swimming, versus when you're driving or on a bus. Like, I just, for me, it's that quest of trying to figure out when these ideas happen.
yeah, I love this so far because you're just basically explaining all the things I feel with other great writers, and I'm finally getting answers. So this is perfect. That's a great way. So many of those voice memos that I have on my phone come with the window cracked an inch because I've been driving, and especially back in my smoking days when I used to smoke cigarettes. And if you're doing Calgary to Vancouver, or you're doing Winnipeg to Calgary, or some long trek, and I was just figuring out all these ideas, um, I would find the frame for lots of things. And it's like, once I have a frame, the words really come quite easily after that. And I know when I get started on something that I can most likely finish it too. Um, that's something that I'm happy about in my own process, is that I just two parts, I am a I do wait on inspiration to kind of find me, or like a new color, a new word or something. I'm always trying to reinvent the language, trying to, that's what we do. Like, that's the most fascinating part about writing, is that we create things that weren't anything until we said they were. That part fascinates me. But I'm confident in my ability too, to that, like, when it's time to get to work, it's like, all right, it's song time. And I really love that one quote about amateurs wait for inspiration. The rest of us just sit down and get to work. Like, that's I read that one a while back, and I kind of challenged myself too. Yeah, like, it is time to do something without a prompt or without any, you know, overtaking inspiration. And it's just like, I know that I have many more albums to make. I have another, I have whole other seasons of this TV show to write, and I better get to it. So I just, the process can start with, I work well in habit and ritual. It's kind of like my university days when I used to prep myself for a study session or something. It's like, all right, from this even time on the clock to the next, I'm going to sit here and enjoy my coffee. And then I want like 25 minutes of just freestyle talking with my wife, getting our visit in. And then a lot of the things close to my heart get satisfied, talk about Wyatt, get all the work out of the way, emails or whatever. And then it's like, all right, now I know I for sure have this next 3 hours or whatever to really create something and tidy my space. I was like that in university too. My wife keeps a gorgeous home for us, but I have this little desk here that I work at, and I work in weird symmetry, make sure everything's fine. That's probably some condition I don't even know about. But
Okay, but hold on. I want to ask you this because what is the and I agree, everything you say, I 100% agree with. Why is it that we feel the need to clean the space around us before we write? That has nothing to do with the process. I see it as almost like procrastination almost. But
sure,
what is
yeah.
that obsession with everything has to be clean? I agree with you.
I you know, when I would always do that. Yeah, it was a form of, I don't know. I can be a touch anxious. I think it allows me to control my environment. It's pleasing to me. I grew up in a cluttered house, We had too much stuff, and it wore on me, and I don't like to feel crowded. And I think if I'm going to the place where I'm trying to open the lanes, let the stuff flow, it's like very symbolic, I guess, around me to have clear lanes to that. So wipe the table down and set the laptop or set the notepad up. I've been back and forth between paper, pencils, and the laptop these days. And um, yeah, just allowing myself the comfort of my zone. It's very satisfying to me, which puts me in a good place, puts me in a happy place to maybe write something happy, or it shields me in going back into the different places or exploring kind of sadder themes or harsher themes that I've either lived or I just think about in the day to day. And either way, it just kind of sets my intention. That's the biggest part of it all.
Okay, so everything you say are these are things I was going to ask you anyway. So I could probably have an entire website dedicated only to the types of pen, the color of ink, brands of pen, and paper, whether it's lined or unlined or grids. So, William, let's get into it because right. So, first of all, and there's research out there that shows that university students have greater recall when they take notes with pen and paper versus computer. So there's that element to it. Um, so it sounds like you go back and forth, but is there a preferred method?
I- I do love the old. In Canada, we have Hilroy Scribblers. That
Wait,
is
what are they called?
called Hilroy Scribblers. That's just the brand of lined normal school paper that you would get all these different color subjects. Um, 1 second here. Just this.
There you go.
Just classic old, elementary school notebook. And I love like dark ink pens.
Mm.
They just
Dark
float.
meaning black?
Yeah. And my good friend Emma just got me onto the Leonard Bernstein pencil. What are they called? There's really great high quality pencils that she got me as a gift, and I got them from Americana Fest too as a gift. But they're really great. Wing something. These Japanese pencils that are awesome. Um, honestly, I think I'm almost quicker with the pencil and paper than I am the laptop. That's what I like
Oh,
about
yeah.
that too. I enjoy the physical act of writing too. I I this is gonna sound so weird, but I used to win awards for writing in school, like the actual legible nature of it, writing competition and stuff. So I guess that's always stuck with me. So I enjoy the process of writing and looking back at it. I've written a fair amount on hotel stationery too, with just whatever pens lying around. And yeah, it's a balance between the moment striking, and I think when I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try to work on the next album, it helps to be in the that kind of a ritual place, the process of it all. But I a number of times I'll finish sound check, and when you're like singing into a microphone and on a system in a nice big reverby empty club or a hall or something, there's a magic there too. I think this is why Prince had like a full size venue in his house so that he would write and practice to a 1,500 person theater, and there's just something that happens there too. It almost like changes, it totally changes the approach you take because you're like, well, if I were back here in, in Noel Gallagher's shoes, having to sing to this huge room, what kind of song would I be singing, Um, and that was the challenge I had on the latest record was like, more speed, more volume, and trying to take us back to those places where I wish I had a bigger song in that big field with that crowd of people, Um, so in those sound check moments, in those moments where we're dialed into our in-ears or rehearsing on a system, so many songs find me there. And it feels really good. So I'll just turn my phone on again, bring those back. And what words am I mumbling there? What am I in the liminal space? I'm just blathering random things that feel like they fit. And then you decode that and it becomes something. So yeah, I'm privileged enough to have that live element in my life pretty consistently so that, hey, it's cool to try this like we're doing it for real. Or like, how do I belt? How do I do something tender that you could really quiet the room with singing on a microphone, I like that part too. I get a lot from that. But yeah, there's definitely ways. I try not to think of I try not to even acknowledge that like being limited or the block or anything. It's like just keep working at it all the time. Mary Gaucher says, "Thank goodness writing good songs is hard."
I had her on the pod a few years ago too. That was a great
Mhm.
conversation. Um, you had also mentioned, and we're on the same wavelength with a lot of these things. I write well under deadline, so I give myself artificial deadlines. Like my wife says, we're leaving at 7. I won't start writing up till 6 because I know I have to stop in an hour.
Yeah.
But if I sat here and wrote for an hour and I didn't have to stop after that hour, I wouldn't get enough done. And I find that having kids was a great. Our kids are our oldest is 22, but when they were younger, having kids can be a great way because when the kids go down for a nap, you got an hour. Um,
Mm.
Again, I know that about myself that I write well, so I give myself artificial deadlines. But I'm hearing you correctly earlier. It sounds like you operate under that same. You like those deadlines. That's a great way to kind of be to get good stuff.
Totally. Wyatt operates on the normal, he's 9, so he has the school hours. And so, I'll be home from dropping him off 8:30-ish. And then it's like 8:30 to 10 o'clock is just that favorite time of day where it's Alicia and I having coffee. It's us setting our intention for the day, that little bit of work I was telling you about. And then I feel like I have this grand abundance then. I feel like, oh, wow, I have 5 hours until I basically got to get in motion to go get him. And then we have our evening where it's not, I'm not musician dad. I'm just dad at that time. And because our time together is so special, like we do a week on, a week off with his mom. And so I really value our 7 days at a time together, especially when tour, will be interrupting that. So we're lucky that we get a lot of quality time, and I grant myself that freedom, yeah, just by getting it all done early in the day. I had this short-lived spell in the pandemic where I was getting up at like 4:35 in the morning, and my family's getting up at 8:30. It's like, wow, I did 4 hours of work already. Now it's like I basically have another day within this same day to work more if I really wanted, and I love feeling like I have that surplus. I love feeling like I used to pay my rent ahead of time, or I would put extra on all my bills, my cell phone, because it's like, wow, I just unlocked 3 months of not worrying about my car insurance. I just unlocked, you know, 4 months of not thinking about the hydro. And that just takes all those little things away from me. And then I'm totally open um to finding stuff. And it's interesting because I wrote most of my early stuff in the total opposite space. Oh my God, I gotta figure out how am I gonna keep my phone on? They're cutting it off today. Like
Hmm.
my roommate's gonna expect his part of the rent in 3 days, and I'm like $180 shy still. What do I do here? Oh my God, I gotta take a break from thinking about that and write something. Like writing was an escape. Writing became therapy. Writing has advanced itself to joy now. Um, and I just think of how lucky I am to make more records. So now it's like I want to get not artificially ahead in the way that like no album will ever have present day feeling, but it's nice to know you got a few in the pocket to start the next story, you know? Or the deluxe version will use this couple songs or something. Like I'm always kind of thinking in stages like that now. It's not writing one song anymore. It's like, how do I capture these 12 songs for this next play I want to put out?
I want to get back to the voice memos. I forgot to ask you this. So, songwriters tell me they have thousands of voice memos or things on their notes app. There's no organization to those things whatsoever, and they're going back furiously to find things. So, is there any organization to those voice memos at all?
Sometimes I put a key phrase that I like about it, and then it helps me find that thing that you were saying. But most of them are just recording 619, and you're like, oh gosh, then you got to sweep through and be like, okay, it was about February, I think, when I started thinking of that. And it would have made sense because we were in this place. So, oh, it's totally between February and April. And then I'll have to listen to 40 notes. And then there it is finally. And then I got something to do. And like those moments are really fun. When I know it's going to be, when I feel like, oh, this is for sure the hook or this is for sure the title, I'll title them. But yeah, all right, you know, process, take or process 1 or something, then I'll know that's like the rawest version of it. And then 2, 3, and then finally it'll get like all caps title when it's a listenable demo. And then honestly, I'll listen to it, listen back in my headphones and just start learning it that way. I'm like, oh, this feels good. Could this be faster? Could this be slower? Helps me with the lyric writing process. If I have a part I really like, and then I just try to work off of that. But yeah, sadly, again, if this iPhone breaks, there's like 1,000 voice notes on here that might be in the cloud. How does that even work? What is that thing? Uh, yeah.
I interviewed Mary Chapin Carpenter about a month ago. And, back in the day before phones, what they would do, I love this story, is when they'd be on tour and they'd have ideas, they would get to a payphone, call their answering machine, and then leave hours. And they'd get home off the tour and there'd be an hour or two of just answering machine messages from them with all of those. That was the primitive voice memo. How often are you mixing and matching those voice memos? Maybe something from here, putting it together?
Yeah, I feel like it's all me, so I'm allowed to do whatever I want before anyone hears it. You know, I pick pieces. It's funny how, something from 2 years ago could suddenly make sense in something today. I like that part. That's really great. When I do go back and listen, I guess it's kind of like that thing we talked about. You feel that calling, and it's like, oh wait, I know I had at least a couple good ideas this year, and then you go back and listen. It's like, oh yes, that thing, and I found that in sound check, and now I actually have time to work on it. I've had an especially long amount of time this year at the end of an album cycle just to be home and work on things and finish this new record. So I've done a lot of writing in the past while, and it's cool to go back to some really old stuff and see if I can revamp it too. That's a neat process for me right now. Um, yeah, like every day I'm in approvals mode right now, listening to we shot videos for the songs or this thing or this promo, and so it's kind of hard to escape my responsibility right now to be most involved with the current music that's about to come out. So it's really a season, it's you can't harvest all the time. You got to let things lie for a bit. Trust that you're growing something even if you don't see it for weeks or months. That's how I've always looked at it. And when the time comes for me to actually profess and say things that mean something to me, it's never let me down yet. So I guess I've become more easy with the way I do things. I'm not less of an artist because I didn't write anything this week. I was doing a bunch of other stuff that benefits the music this week. And so it doesn't serve anybody to be like hard on myself that way or, oh, I'm not as good because I'm not brilliant like so and so whose, Instagram post today talks about, well, it's not even that. I really only follow my peers that I love, but like, you know, you hear James Brown wrote 5,000 songs or something. I'm like, oh man, I guess I'm so far behind. 5,000 songs, really? Like, all right.
Well, you're choosing someone who's on an incredibly high pedestal. I mean, that's you're going to torture yourself if the goal is James Brown output.
But I think of like, I saw Gordon Lightfoot when they unveiled his statue. I was playing a show in his hometown of Orillia, Ontario, and it just so happened down the street they were unveiling the Gordon Lightfoot statue, and he was there, and a group of about 300 people were all gathered around. And I think of Gordon Lightfoot, and I just think that guy has recorded 10,000 songs, and he just said, I made 285 recordings in my life, and it's like, oh wow, that's like a very attainable amount. You think of the sheer depth of a Gordon Lightfoot song, mind you. It's not your average tune. Like it's oftentimes, a novel in there with no repeating parts, and
The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I mean, come on now.
everything. They all had that beautiful quality to him. He was such a crafter. It's like, we can make birdhouses, but this guy could really make a birdhouse.
All right, let's end with this. Other types of art that inspire you. Ernest Hemingway said, I'm again quoting Hemingway, all writers should go to art galleries to get inspired. So whether it's books, literature, other things besides the other types of creative endeavors that inspire you.
Movies. I've forever been a movie person. I love, I've written songs with the prompt in my mind that I want this song to feel as good as the new equipment scene in the Mighty Ducks. When I want a song to feel that good. Or this whole new record is basically Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, the seriousness, the weight of things, how the gravity of things. So movies and great dialogue, great writing that way inspires me. Um, I have a lot of artist friends who do physical media, Patrick Hunter, Blake Angikaneb. Their work always inspires me to do more, to keep working because like these are friends that just live close by and they're in their house working on something, so I should be too. But you know, I have a song called Goldie Hawn because Goldie Hawn movies kind of shaped my view of who I'd want to end up with in this life. You know, somebody that is kind and bright and funny and so themselves. I mentioned Georgia O'Keeffe in that song as well. And women, great women inspire me, mostly my wife. But yeah, just thinking of my peers like Allison Russell and Marielle Buckley, the great writers who take on a lot harder work being in a marginalized community themselves. We're talking queer and BIPOC people here, and they are doing a lot of heavy lifting. So it inspires me to do the same too, once in a while. But yeah, I'm so inspired by my son and just being this family man and living in a different realm, so different than the one I grew up in, with peace and ease and calm. And you know, I don't want to believe that I had to be totally living in pain, living in chaos and panic in order to create something. No pressure, no diamonds, they say. Well, I like to think I'm making good whiskey over here. I let things sit and you don't know it until it's out of the barrel when I got to tap into it. So, yeah, I just kind of keep moving that way. And my process flows with the universe. Gratitude is a big part of my process. Thank you, first and foremost, that I'm even alive and that I'm here and survived a lot of things and that my family is happy and healthy. Big breath. And within that, I find the peace to create in the privilege that is creation, because I could very easily be back at the oil shop doing a bad job changing oil and burning my hand and working retail with people that aren't very respectable and to me and respectful, I should say, not respectable, but like the everyday rush hour drive of so many of my friends, people that I know who are unable to tap into their passion because they're so busy surviving. A lot of people that I know have to live that way, and how easily I could fall back into that category. So it's a gratitude. Gratitude helps me get anything done these days. So start with that and then just move forward. And lo and behold, we donated some money to the shelter today. We dropped off some clothes. We gave $20 to that person in traffic. We were grateful. And I got another song coming. It's great.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews. with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.